This particular group has a chance to be very, very special and historic.
Still, somehow that hate and that passion for this rivalry still exists.
The same schedule that they depicted us to be the last in the freaking conference is the same schedule that we're 8-4 on.
Not quite, my friend. Give me the Mountaineers, baby.
Neil has done exactly what he said he was going to do when the university entrusted him in this position. Trust the climb, give me a few years, let me get my culture in here, let me build the way I'm going to build.
Welcome into the Walkthrough Game Day Show presented by West Virginia on SI. I'm your host, Schuyler, Callihan, and that is my co-host, Eugene Napoleon, West Virginia legendary running back. And folks, it was not a fun day at the ballpark on Saturday as Mountaineers fell 34-12 to number 8 Penn State. It was ugly, it was bad, it was hot, it was long because of the rain delay that lasted about 2 hours and some change. And it just was a game that felt like it was over almost from the beginning. It was a scoreless first quarter, but it felt like once Penn State got that second score, even though it was only a 2-score game, it just felt like a game that was already starting to kind of spiral slowly out of West Virginia's control. We're going to get some thoughts on that game and other things from Eugene here in just a moment. But a rundown of what we're going to talk about today, obviously that. We'll get into our week 1 overreactions. There's always people talking about some craziness after the first week. This team's going to win the college football playoff. This team's never going to win a game. This guy's going to win the Heisman. This guy's going to be number 1 pick. So we're going to talk about week 1 overreactions. Of course, we'll get into our weekly trivia question of the week. We'll take a break and come back and start breaking down the game between West Virginia and the Albany Great Danes. And then we'll close out the show, as always, with our pick'ems. So be sure at that point, when we do get to our pick'ems, to make sure that you go into YouTube comment section, put your picks in, and if you get all 5 correct, you'll get that man's autographed picture right there. We didn't have a winner last week. We're 0 for 1. We need to get on the board this week and see if that happens. So, Gene, I'm going to kind of take a step back. I'm going to take a deep breath. I already did this a little bit earlier this week on the Between Ears show with Chris, talking about our week 1 takeaways. So I'm going to let you have the floor here. What did you see in this game, positive and negative, against Penn State? And then looking at it globally, not just the Penn State game itself, but what did you see in this game, positive and negatively, that has you either excited or worried about what's to come?
Well, I got to be completely forthright. It's one game does not make a season. Let me be clear on that. One game does not make a season. We all know that. Anybody that played any sports understand it's a long season.
Absolutely.
The thing that bothered me the most, it looked as if we were not prepared. So at this level, I don't care who you're playing against. If you look as if you're not prepared,
probably because you're not.
Okay, and you put that product on the field, then the whole country gets to see, well, wait a minute. They didn't look like they were prepared in the running game. They didn't look like they were prepared in the passing game. The special teams looked okay at times. Okay, there's too many question marks. So when you leave your first week, and that's your opening statement of what you want college football and the landscape of college football to either walk away with saying, wow, they look really good in this phase. They look really good in that phase. When you don't see that week 1, it opens up more questions than answers. So I'm looking at our offensive line. They didn't play well. They didn't. I'm looking at our leader. He didn't play well. He didn't. Defensively, your defense could only hang in there but so long before things start to click, and you kind of saw that. Our defense was really trying to do what they needed to do, but then Penn State started clicking. They started doing some things and figuring out what we was not doing well, and they took full advantage of it. And that is the mark of a well-coached football program, a football team. Now, we can say, well, it's the first week, but it was the first week for Penn State as well. Okay, so my takeaways on the positive side. I didn't see too many heads hanging as far as we're just going to give up and lay down and take this.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing because teams can do that. I didn't see too many gripings on the sideline. That happens sometimes, you get frustrated with each other. I didn't see that, which is good. On the negative side of what I just said, we have to get better in kind of matching the energy and understanding the magnitude of the game. I think that got away from us a little bit. I think we were overhyped to play this game instead of being really calm and just, we make a mistake. Okay, we'll get back to it. Let's have amnesia on that mistake. Forget it. Let's come back the next play, and you battle your way back into the game. I'm a little bit concerned because I didn't see exactly that. So that concerns me because I don't care what anybody says. Yes, Penn State is a good team, and they're going to win a lot of games.
Oh, yeah.
When that game was over, I was very disappointed we didn't execute, I feel, the way we should have or the way we could have. And a lot of that, you read comments like, oh, well, coach didn't do this well, coach didn't do that well. I think coach knows what he didn't do well. And I think he knows the players that didn't play well. I respect the fact that he didn't call anybody out by name, but he also alluded to my top end guys did not perform to the level that they should have. So I'll end with saying this. If your top end guys didn't perform to the level that they should have, then what does that say for the coaches who are coaching those top end guys? We're in this together. All right? We're in this together. So as a running back coach, if my backs didn't run well, I'm not going to say I'm upset with the backs. I'm going to say I'm upset with me.
Yeah.
Because there's something that I may have missed, why this guy didn't hit the hole properly, why he missed that read, why he wasn't in the route tree and run the right route, all of these different things. How come he didn't pick up that blitz? So I need to do a better job as a coach to make sure he's prepared. And then guess what? Once I do that and week 2 come around and we have the same missed assignments, then guess what? Then he won't be starting.
Exactly. You're going to find a new body to get in there.
We're going to find somebody else to get. So those are my takeaways. You already know what we bleed over here. All right. So this is not me coming down on I love our program. You understand what I'm saying to you? I love the Mountaineers. I love the old gold and blue. But I'm just being honest. If we want to get into the landscape of the college football playoff, we cannot put that product on the field ever again this year.
Yeah.
Ever again. Can't do it.
Absolutely.
We can't do it. There's too many other teams that are that's going to have something to say about that.
Yeah, Neil talked about it in post game, or maybe it was Monday. I can't remember which press conference it was, but he said, I'm not even sure that we would have beat a subpar team on Saturday. And I have to agree with them. I mean, they played that sloppy sides of the ball. Offensively, the turnovers, 3-1. You're not going to win a game turn the ball over 3 times, only getting it once. I don't care if you're playing Penn State, if you're playing Marshall, if you're playing Duquesne, Albany, Oklahoma State, doesn't matter who the opponent is. You lose the turnover battle, statistically, the numbers are going to say you're going to have a better chance of losing the game than winning it. The second thing is the red zone. They have hammered, and I mean hammered, red zone work all fall camp long. They went 1 for 4 down there, Gene. And one of those, maybe 2, I can't really remember exactly where the ball was. They had 4 downs to get to move it. They went for it on 4th down twice, at least on that end of the field. I know one was in the red zone. I'm not sure about the second one. I have to do my research on that. But 1 for 4 in the red zone, man. Like, you had the same amount of opportunities in the red zone as Penn State did. And the score was 34-12. So that right there tells you that was a key part of this game. You got down there, you couldn't finish the drives. That's got to change. Thirdly, and lastly, for me, is the run defense. You gave up 222 rushing yards, about 5.3 yards a carry. I mean, they're getting they're halfway to the first down markers after one carry.
Absolutely.
You can't have that happen. And to me, from what it looked like, from my vantage point, because I was at the game, it looked like the linebackers were overshooting things. They were they weren't fitting the run game perfectly at all. It felt like they were playing almost too wild and too I don't know, they couldn't harness in the energy and they just wanted to hurry up and get there and get to their spot. And sometimes that's a good thing because you're being aggressive, you're playing tenaciously, but in some cases you can overplay things. And there was a couple of plays where it felt like all 11 Mountaineers were swarming to the ball, and then they'd make one cut back and there was nobody on this side of the field. Now, you hear defensive coordinators say all the time, all 11 hats to the ball. I want all 22 eyes on where the ball's at. In some ways, that is a good thing, but in some instances, it's not. You don't want all 11 guys on one side of the field and have nobody over here when he bounces it back. That happened a couple of times on some of those big runs that they ripped, where just one cut and go, boom, and it's a 20-yard game.
There was a lot. Well, you're overrunning the plays, you're overshooting gaps. The run fit, like you said, wasn't crisp enough.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, man. When you get in the red zone, the last I checked, Green does not call his own plays, correct?
No.
Okay. So when you get in the red zone, and they're crucial pieces to every drive, you got to know, all right, here's what we're going to do from a percentage standpoint. The likelihood of Penn State doing this when we come out in this formation is going to be 80% or, and I know the analytics, I know West Virginia is really good with that. I know at this level, all these guys are good with. That's why they have the top analysts in the country, usually. They're really good analysts that give you that information. Okay. If you're in the red zone 2 times or 4 times and you don't get anything out of it, there's a lot to be said about what's being called when at that key point in the game. And that's not up to your quarterback because he's not calling his own plays. So what's on your play sheet if it's 1st and goal? What's on your play sheet if you don't get it at 2nd and goal, 3rd and goal? Okay, now we have to make a crucial. It's 3rd and goal. Do we go for kick, field goal, whatever? But what is on your play sheet? What 5 to 10 plays do you have marked down there where you're going to audible if it's a run or pass when you're in the red zone? That's crucial to know, and that should be drilled into your QB's head because it should be second nature. It's not even wasting time on that at that particular point. You know exactly what you're going to do. If it's the tush push, and we see these linebackers with it, they're already eagling down in each gap, and you got the safety screwed down.
You got
and I got a D in here. I got an overhang, either outside B or the corner is tight. Then guess what? Tush push formation look like a tush push, and I'm either going to take my slot and run him across the formation and pitch it to him, and let me take a chance on my guy's speed versus your guy's speed to the corner of the end zone to the flag. Let's see who gets there first, or if I'm doing that just for a first down, or just the look alone.
Yeah.
Or a tight end tush push formation, right? Look like it's a tush push. Jump past the tight end. These are all just creative little ways to throw a little bit of a different wrinkle in that particular formation.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, that's just me. What do I know? That's just me.
I mean, we talked about it on Saturday. I don't know if it was actually on the show or on the post-game show, if it was just when we were talking beforehand, but a lot of those short yardage situations, like I think you and I kind of agreed, we were surprised they kept running it into the teeth of that defense. I mean, that defensive front is nasty. And I'm not saying that you would have beat them on the edge, but I feel like your chances would have been much higher by trying to bounce it with either Jaheim or Garrett on the outside than running it inside into the teeth of that defense. But that's neither here nor there. But the one other
Yeah,
thing I wanted to talk about really quickly, to put the finishing touches on the Penn State game, and you kind of mentioned it already, the big stage. This is the first time that this team, this program really, under Neil Brown, has had this much attention on it heading into a game. And maybe
sure.
it's a little bit different if it's in the middle of the season. You've kind of already gotten to a rhythm a little bit. You've already known your routine. You know your role. You know how to play with certain guys, whether it's on the offensive line, your secondary guy, and you know how each other works. But when it's the first game of the year and you have not had that chemistry built, you've not played with some of these guys. Defensively, there's a lot of new pieces in that back end.
Right.
You
Yep.
have all of this pressure. You have all this the eyes on you, the national stage. Everyone's talking about you. Everyone's starting to pick you as a trendy upset to beat number 8, then number 8 Penn State. Did you sense that early in the game or at any point that it just felt like these guys weren't ready and that not they weren't ready for the national spotlight and that it got to them mentally?
Could I be completely honest with you?
Absolutely.
Let me tell you something. When you get to this level, Scholar, no, no. And I think I read a few comments. Oh my God, they wasn't ready for the big stage. Listen, let me tell you something. And people might get upset with me saying this. It is what it is, right? That's more coaching than playing.
Mhm.
Are you kidding me? That's more coaching than playing. Here's the deal. Every player wants that.
Yeah.
That's what you want. That's what you go up running
The
around
big
in the backyard with no shirt on, playing, with your buddies.
Yeah.
That's what you want. Like, this is why you come to a program like West Virginia or Penn State or these other huge, these programs at that level. This is what you dream of. So no, it ain't the players. That's coaching. Because if you coach to keep a game close, then that's what you're going to get from the players. That's the execution you're going to get from the players. If you coach to win a football game, that's the energy that you're going to get from your players. They know 4th and 1. Oh, we're going to get this 4th and 1. We going for it on 4th and 1. And I'm gonna put you in a position. I'm gonna call a play where you understand. I believe that we can get it. And we're gonna get it on this play. It's important to understand that element of it. Coach Nealon would have pulled his hair off if we talk about our offensive line. I remember him saying it. Oh, we had a great offensive line my years at WVU. They were good. They were really good.
I know you
And
got
he
a
would
Don
say,
Nealon impression waiting.
listen, you're going to straight 1 yard. Yeah. He didn't care. I don't care who we play. If you can't get 1 yard behind this massive offensive line that we assembled, something is wrong with us coaching. Listen, he was very pointed about that. 1 yard. I don't care who we're playing against. We can get 1 freaking yard.
All
So
four.
come on, man. I'm big on that.
Yeah.
And he would always say that's coaching. Guess what? I recruited you to play on national television for all the marbles. I recruited you to come here and be able to handle the pressure. So I disagree with those who would say the players, West Virginia kind of cracked under the pressure. Nah, I don't. No, I don't think so, my guy. That's
Yeah.
just my humble opinion.
I don't know if it was so much the pressure. It may have been first game jitters. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a difference there. First game jitters, you're just a little anxious. That kind of wears out as the game goes on. And especially when you have a 2.5 hour delay, you had a chance to reset and get back into the right frame of mind. I don't necessarily think it was all this hype, all the Pat McAfee show came, Big Noon Fox kickoff was there, everyone was picking. I don't think that was it at all. I think it was first game jitters. They got behind, some bad things happened early, and they just played sloppy football on all 3 phases. Well, I should say offensively and defensively. Special teams, I think they did okay in, but anyways, that's enough to Penn State talk. We're going to go bury that one. We're not going to talk about that one again for the sake of you, me, and everyone listening to this show. So let's go ahead and move into our week 1 overreactions. Now, Gene, as I told you before the show, you can keep this West Virginia Central. You can keep it, or you can go to the national side of it. Anything that you want to do here, I'll let you have the states here first. Where are you going with your week one overreaction?
Let me tell you something. I have
Okay.
two in particular. That Miami Florida game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yep.
Ooh, I picked Florida.
We were both wrong on that, by the way.
Thinking that when you slide into the swamp, right?
Yep.
It's a little bit different. That quarterback from Miami.
He's a
dude, he's different. The poise and the calmness in which he played. Oh my, he is different, man. I like that dude. I think I don't know if Miami is back, but if they're not back, I'm gonna tell you right now, they're about 95%. If he plays the way he played against Florida, there might be a Heisman in his future. That's it, Cam. Oh, Cam. That's a different dude there.
Yeah.
Now I gotta show Boston College some love. I gotta show them some love. So okay. People, I think, exaggerated the thought process of Florida State because of what happened to them when they opened up against Georgia Tech. They were going to come back and just smash BC. BC had to go down there to Florida State to play them down there. Oh, all that. Oh, okay. I watched that whole game last night. Shout out to the running back coach down there, Florida State, Savon Huggins. Excellent job, my guy. Yes, you did your thing. Your backs was in there doing their 1-2.
Yeah.
I'm not overreacting to Boston College's win, but I am going to state a fact. Florida State is 0-2. So anyone who thinks that Florida State is going to be in the playoff picture, no, sir.
No.
Mm-mm.
No comeback for the Seminoles.
You know why? You're 0-2 in your own conference.
Yeah.
Okay? You didn't even get into the meat of your schedule yet. There might be, dare I say, 2 to 3 more losses.
Oh, goodness.
Okay?
Yeah.
Think about that. You haven't even gotten into the meat and you're 0-2 already in your conference. Problem. So I've read comments where they're going to be just fine. And you can say that.
Yeah.
I don't agree, but I am very happy with the win. BC went in there and did exactly what you're supposed to do when you're playing a Florida State team. They've ran the football well. They threw it well. They got a heck of a quarterback.
Yeah, they do.
At BC, that dude is different. So I'll say this. I'm going to go on record and say, please stop telling me you have to be 6'5" to play quarterback and play it efficiently. My boy is 5'9".
He's got a little like Curry in him.
He does. My boy is 5'9". Now I'm gonna tell you a little secret. I watched him when he was I think he came out of UCF. If I'm not mistaken, I think he transferred from UCF into BC.
I can't remember. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And he was a dynamo there. So do yourself a favor. Go back and look at him in high school. That boy threw for over 7,000 yards in high school. Yeah.
Wow.
There was, yeah. He is legit. So I'm very happy for BC's win. My take out of that, they're going to do well this year. Florida State, I feel bad for. And again, I think Miami is, I'm not even over exaggerating when I think that 95% Miami is back. I have to admit that. So yeah. I'm on the bandwagon now. I'm drinking the juice.
Well, I'm going to counter your bandwagon juice there. Because my overreaction, my national one, I got one for WVU though, is no, Miami is not back. They went and beat a really bad Florida team, and I and you picked Florida, so I'm being 100% honest here. And I know I picked them. But I just figured, having the swamp, first game of the season, Miami's got some expectations, but they always seem to fall short and trip up in these big time games. Figured this would be another one. And that just proved to not be the case. Florida is that bad of a team. They are going to have a really long year. They have one of the toughest schedules in the country, maybe the toughest. I think it actually is the toughest.
Yep.
And I just don't think that Miami is as good as what we saw from them on Saturday. Now, that being said, I do think they are a good team. I love Cam Ward a lot. I liked him a lot at Washington State. I think he's going to
Yeah.
be a great quarterback there. He may be the ACC Player of the Year. Miami may go to the ACC title game. Is Miami a national championship contender? I don't know about that. I'm way, way, way far off of that, and that's why I think that's my number one overreaction is that everyone's just starting to go ahead and put Miami in the CFP for sure. They're going to make some noise there. They may even go to the final. Like let's tamper the expectations down a little bit. We've seen this before. Miami, not that long ago, went 10-0 to start the year, or 10-1 or whatever it was. Obviously not under Cristobal, but they did that and then they fell apart at the end of the year. This is a thing that we've seen happen before. Now with
But
West
hold on.
Virginia, go ahead.
I'm sorry. But they did not have Cam. Oh, Cam. They didn't have Cam Ward at quarterback, my
No,
friend. He's a different dude. I'm telling you, he's a different dude.
I 100% agree. And then for WVU, my overreaction, I mean, we could go a million different ways with this, but I'm going to stick up here, and maybe this backfires on me, but I'm going to stick up for defensive coordinator Jordan Leslie. He has received a ton of criticism since that Penn State game. Here's my thing. I think a large portion of this fan base is still hung up on the fact that Vic Koenig, or Vic King, however you pronounce his last name, is no
Right.
longer the DC here. This was years ago. This was after 1 year of Neil Brown and that whole situation that happened off the field.
Yeah.
Everyone just thinks that Vic got a raw deal. He should have been here. He would have been great. Folks, I advise you, go back and look at Vic Canning's numbers as a DC, wherever he's been. I think he had one top 50 defense. Maybe it was two, but one for sure throughout his entire career. That's it. Jordan Leslie, in his first year, had West Virginia as one of the top 5 defenses in the country. Now, you'll say, "Well, yeah, but they've had some stumbles since then." Well, of course. They've lost guys to the transfer portal. They lost Akeem Messenger, Drayshawn Miller. They lost guys left and right on the defensive side of the ball to the portal when the NIL stuff was not in place. They've started to rebound from that. They got a little bit better in 22, wasn't great. 23, they started to turn the corner. They were number 1 in the Big 12 in sacks last year. They finished as the 5th best big defense in the Big 12. And oh yeah, Gene, they turned a role player, a career role player, into a consensus All-American in Beanie Bishop. So I'm just sitting here saying we could have said this last year when Penn State hung up 38 on West Virginia. And look what happened after the fact. Yes, they had their moments. They didn't look great against Oklahoma. They didn't look great against a couple of other teams, but they did enough to allow them to be a 9-win team. And I think you're going to see some similar progress this year. I think it's going to be a better unit than last year. They have more experience, more depth. I think it's just a lot of people are caught up on the whole Vic Koenig thing from a few years ago. They've never really gave Jordan Leslie a shot. And the second thing is, if you're going to be upset about anybody, it should be Neil Brown, because this offense is the side of the ball. That's the side of the ball that you had expectations on heading into the season. So I don't want to spend too much more time on. If you got a thought, go for it.
No, you know what? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'll probably agree with you 75-25.
There we go. See?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. I agree with you on that. I just think that, listen, when people are expecting so much out of one side of the ball and not the other, you got to balance this thing out. So I do agree with you.
Yeah.
You know, I think our defense will get better. I'm hoping that our offense will get better. You know, it has to. It just has to. We can't continue to play the way we played and expect to have good things happen, you know, throughout the year, especially since I said we're going to go 10-2.
Yeah, you got a little slim margin now, but yeah, I mean the offense was the talking point for everybody this season. That had to be the side of the ball that came out on fire, and it just simply did. No one really talked that much or that highly of the defense. So I think we need to tamper the expectations, be a little easy on Jordan Leslie, give him some time to get this thing fixed. So before we head to break, our trivia question for the week, Gene, I'll ask you the question. We'll come back and get your answer. This week's question: West Virginia is now 24-0 all time against FCS opponents. Keep in mind, this is only when these schools have been formed as an have been mentioned as an FCS team. That started in 1978. Who came the closest since 1978 to upsetting WVU? Was it A, Richmond, B, James Madison, or C, William & Mary? So think on that for just a second. We're going to go ahead and toss it to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about it. We're going to get Gene's answer. We'll reveal the answer before we get into our West Virginia versus Albany preview. You're here on the Walkthrough Game Day Show. Do you have dirty air ducts? Is your dryer vent plugged up? Well, odds are you probably don't know the answer to that question. Fortunately for you, we know a guy. Give Justin at Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning a call at 304-639-3395 for your free home evaluation. That's 304-639-3395. Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort. Welcome back to the Walkthrough Game Day Show. I'm Schuyler Callihan. That is Eugene Napoleon, West Virginia legendary running back. And before we get into our West Virginia Albany preview, it's time to take a look again once again at our trivia question for the week, and that is West Virginia's 24-0 all-time against FCS opponents. FCS, of course, forming in 1978. Who came the closest to upsetting WVU? Was it A, Richmond, B, James Madison, or C, William & Mary? Gene, lock your answer in.
So I'm going to say B, James Madison.
And you, my friend, would be incorrect. So this is A, Richmond. So Richmond in 1978, the first year the FCS actually was a thing, and then the following year in 1979. So West Virginia won those two games 14-12 and 20-18. So as I was mentioning to you before the show, I kind of gave you a little heads up here where it was actually done twice. So Richmond was the closest two times, and it was by the exact same differential, 2 points. 78-79 was the answer there. So a little tough, but yes, as Gene has pointed out, there are some of these teams that have beaten West Virginia before, but it was before they were FCS. It was just one big thing. No one really had these separations of levels and all that. So a little tricky for you this week, Gene.
Now, that was good. That was good. You know why? Because James Madison, like I said, James Madison and William & Mary both came within 7 points. But as you said, Richmond was the correct answer.
Exactly. So let's go and move into our preview here of West Virginia and Albany, our players to watch for this week's game. Starting with Albany, running back Griffin Waddell. He is a pretty good guy. I mean, 892 yards, 8 touchdowns on the ground. This is from a year ago. Of course, he added another 255 catching and another 4 touchdowns receiving. He's a CAA preseason pick to be one of the top players in that conference down at the FCS level. And then the other player is wide receiver Seven McGee. Gotta love that name, Seven McGee, Oregon and a Jacksonville State transfer. So he spent some time there at those two schools. In week 1 against Long Island, he had 5 catches for 119 yards and a touchdown. Very, very quick. He ran a 10.27 in the 100-meter dash. So he's going to be the fastest player on the field when he is on the field. These are two interesting players. And then obviously Flipping over to West Virginia, we've got Garrett Green as the player to watch. Typically, don't go with the quarterback because we like to go a little bit deeper into this, but he's got to bounce back. We'll get some more thoughts on him. And then defensive lineman Sean Martin. He's somebody that has to get going, set the tone up front for that defensive line. Needs to get some pressure generated. They didn't do hardly any of that against Penn State. So, Gene, let's go and start with the two guys from Albany. Usually try to split one up, one offense, one defense, but we're going both on the offensive side of the ball here, and we'll talk about the reason behind that later on. But Griffin Waddell, Seven McGee, two dangerous playmakers. What does West Virginia need to do to contain them? What do they need to fix from last week's game to not see those same mistakes pop up again here in week 2?
I'll be honest with you, from the defensive standpoint, we have to put pressure on the quarterback. You cannot let Seven out the box and let him do his thing because him in open space can be a problem.
Yeah.
If you run a 10-2, my guy, that's different.
Yeah, I mean, that's lightning speed.
That's different. That's different. So you can't have him summons his Tavon Austin against us. You understand? That's a little bit different. So I think we have to get some pressure on him, on the quarterback, make it a little bit difficult. And I think stuff the run game. Honestly, we have to really stuff the run game. This is I'm going to bounce back on all phases of the game, okay? And Albany has to feel the frustration of what we did or didn't do last week. So
Yep.
No, you're not running. The game plan should be you're not gaining 100 yards on us. You're not, okay? Well, you're not. You're not throwing for more than 120 yards on us. You're not. You're not. We need at least 4 sacks. I know we need at least 4 sacks. And then conversely, offensively, we got to come out and we need big plays. And the reason why I'm saying that, we have to get our playmakers involved early and often because that's going to build their confidence. And it should roll right in from this game into week 3, at Pitt. So Those things have to happen where we get our confidence back and a little bit of a swag back. And I get it. People are going to say, oh, yeah, well, that's an FCS program. But Albany is a decent program. Don't get it twisted. They play decent ball, all right? They're in a really good conference. They play decent ball. But my expectations, everything that we should have did to Penn State, we should do to Albany.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, look, I said it. Yeah.
So I'm with you with Seven McGee. I mean, he's a guy that, he didn't play a ton at Oregon. He played some, obviously, last year at Jackson State. But listen, man, he's not anyone you want to mess with. And I don't know how they're going to plan to go about covering him. I don't know if it's going to be man-to-man or if they're going to play zone. I mean, he's somebody that lines up in the slot a lot too. So maybe this is a challenge for Rodney Gallagher, who's playing 2 ways right now. This is an opportunity for him to get more reps there. But the one thing is with him, you've got to make sure that you swarm to him and not allow him to make you miss, get upfield and get to the open space where he's in a race to the end zone. Because if that's the case, well, you might as well already start getting the kick return team ready because he's going to reach the end zone. As far as Waddell, I think it starts with the defensive line and getting into the right point of contact. You want to get some push up front. They didn't get a ton of it last week against Penn State, but it was a weird game. I don't think they played horribly. Like I think the defensive line was physical. They were doing some of the right things. They were just getting stood up at the line when they did make a little bit of a push. They got walled off or stood up, and they didn't really get much into the backfield. And then here comes the linebackers into the play where we talked about earlier in the show. Guys were misfitting. They were overshooting, overplaying, however you want to phrase it. And I think that is a direct result of just being amped up, being overly excited, wanting to make something happen. I don't know that you're going to see that this week. And no disrespect to Albany here, but I think the hype around this game is a little bit different compared to last week. So I think you'll see the linebackers start to settle in. Ben Cutter didn't play well last week. He's got to come through. Trey Lath and Josiah Trotter did play well. He's somebody that I think needs to keep going and show that he could be a leader even as a redshirt freshman. But that's that. For West Virginia, Garrett Green. So last week, tried to find the numbers here. He went, where was it? Oh, here it is. Garrett Green, last week, 15 of 28, 161 yards through the air. He had 10 carries for 5 yards on the ground. Now, I say that, but have to mention there was at least 5 drops in this game. So
Yep.
if you catch 4 of those, he's 19 of 28. That's not a bad day. And some of those would have been big gains. The first one right out of the chute would have been a 30-plus yard catch for Traylon Ray. Didn't hold on. Hudson Clement dropped one. Preston Fox dropped one. Cole Taylor dropped one. Jaden Bray dropped one. So there's a lot of plays left to be left out there, but I didn't feel like Garrett was a sharp. He felt like he was a little, I wouldn't say timid or skittish, but it just didn't feel like he was real settled in or he was real comfortable behind that offensive line.
Never
So,
got into
right. So, to me, this is a week where he's got to come out, sling that thing around, get that confidence going early. You don't want Garrett Green to play in the deep third quarter or into the fourth quarter of this game. It's got to be a Nico Markey all second half, right?
I would, yeah. And I'm going to say this. You ready?
Yep.
Garrett Green does not call his own plays.
Yep. You're right.
If we talking about my man slinging that pill all around the field, Garrett Green does not call his own plays. So if that's the case, then whatever's being called, it has to be called for him to sling that thing all around the field. Okay. So once we understand that, and then once that play is called, then we have to execute. You can't have drops like that and expect to move the ball efficiently for 4 quarters up and down the field. But I am in 100% agreement with you. That second half, if we see Nico in the game, then we know we've done what we were supposed to do offensively.
Yeah. Heck,
If we
even
don't,
Wilkins in there, the true freshman. Get some of the walk-ons in there. Like this is a game where you've got to start fast. And it's something that has kind of been an issue for this team. And during fall camp, clearly they didn't start well last Saturday against Penn State, or really at any point in that game. They didn't start well coming out of that 2.5 hour delay either. So starting fast is a major, major key for them in this one. You don't want Albany to hang around. And even if they do, again, I don't think there's anything to worry about or sweat. Probably just gave away my pick for the end, but it's something that you should be feeling comfortable with, even if there is a slow start. You want to be able to feel good about going into that second half where you get some of those other guys in that otherwise probably wouldn't be playing in Big 12 games.
Absolutely.
So let's go with a little Albany breakdown here. So last year, the Great Danes were 11-4 in their non-conference slate, at least of the notable games. That is, they lost 21-17 at Marshall. They lost 31-20 at Hawaii. But again, they went 11-4. They got hot down the stretch. They won 3, 6, 7 games, it looks like, in a row before falling and getting more than just fall in this one, Gene. They got absolutely crushed by South Dakota State, 59-0 in the FCS semifinal. And they lost a bunch off of last year's team. They have a new quarterback. They got some new pieces on at receiver, some new offensive line. Well, let's start there with the West Virginia defense against Albany's offense. We kind of already talked about it, so we won't go too deep into this, but what are you most concerned with in this game, particularly when West Virginia's defense is on the field and you're going up against a team that you really don't know all that well, you don't have a ton of film on, it's an FCS opponent. What is the game plan for Jordan Leslie this week to get back on the right track?
Pressure, and more pressure. Point of attack, control the line of scrimmage at the point of attack with your defensive linemen. Make sure that your linebackers are scraping and they're fitting the run gaps efficiently, effectively, often, and get the ball carried to the ground. For my secondary, I want ball hawks. If the ball's in the air, I want it.
Yeah.
I want it. So this game, defensively for West Virginia, I would expect 1 to 2 fumbles, and that's from laying hats, on the ball. I would expect hopefully a pick. I really would. And then, like I said, in the run game, I don't want them to gain over 100 yards, honestly. And
Get
collectively,
over 100
like
yards. Oh, my goodness.
I don't want them to gain 100 yards. And total offense, they should be somewhere in that 105, 110 range. Total offense.
Wow. Stingy.
Like I said, total. Because honestly, point of attack with your defensive line compared to their offensive line, and they lost a lot, like you said. I watched them last year. No, I'm not expecting them to come out and do. I want to smother everything.
Yeah.
And if I'm Jordan Leslie, that's what I'm telling them. Look, I want to smother everything. Run game, pass game, no big plays. I don't want to freaking play over 20 yards.
Yeah. I
know that sounds unrealistic, but you have to get back something from what you lost last week.
16% of Penn State's plays were considered explosive plays. That's way too many. And the Albany offense is a little, like I said, there's a lot of kind of unknowns about them because they have a lot of new pieces. Burkett is the starting quarterback. He's a Wisconsin transfer. He didn't play there, so we don't really know what to expect from him there. But they have a 1-2 punch in the running back room. We already talked about Waddell. They also have Fasale Aiden, who rushed 459 yards and a pair of touchdowns. So their running game is probably where they're going to lean. They were really good in the passing game a year ago. They lost their top 2 receivers from last year. They lost their quarterback. They've got some changes up front. It's going to look a little different. They're going to probably try and run the ball, and probably for most FCS teams, that's kind of what the game plan is going into it anyways, because you want to shrink the clock and shrink the game as much as you humanly possibly can. But
absolutely,
that offensive line, although they do have a couple of new pieces in terms of actually starting, they've got some pretty experienced players. Left tackle Hutchinson, 35 games, second team CAA, all CAA pick. You have Houseman, the left guards, 28 games played. He's a fourth team preseason pick. Duggery was a freshman All-American center. Marotta, third team preseason pick. He's played 35 games. Latulippe has got 14 games, freshman All-American. So they've got talented guys. They're undersized, though. This is where you got to take control of the line of scrimmage, dominate up front. This is a game where you should be able to do that. But yeah, anyways, final thoughts there on that side of the ball.
They got listen. Let me say this. I'm respectful. I'm respectful of what they bring to the table.
Yep.
Smother everything.
Smother it.
Everything. I can't make it any plainer. I'm not trying to hear none of that. Less than 150 total yards, more in that 120 range, and then I'm happy. I'm just saying.
I like the high expectation.
Then I'm happy.
So flipping it over to the other side, West Virginia with the ball, Albany on defense. And this is exactly why we didn't talk much about the defense and the players to watch because, well, Gene, they lost their top 15 producers from last year's team that went to the FCS semifinal. They have one returning starter, and that is the safety Winston. They have 3 others that were listed in the 2 deep a year ago. Berschwinger, the linebacker, Shahade, a defensive lineman, and Kavon Engri, a cornerback. So this is a team that only sees 4 guys that have experience playing on this team, in this defense, in this scheme, back from a year ago. So when you have that much turnover, if you're Garrett Green, if you're Jaheim White, if you're Jaden Bray, if you're Hudson Clement, you got to be licking your chops looking at this opportunity.
You have to. And this is what I'm saying. Garrett Green does not call his own plays. Therefore, in the passing game,
yep.
if I'm Neil Brown, I'm going to be licking my chops to say, because Neil is calling the plays, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to get Garrett started early and often, and we're going to throw the ball down the field. Because I really need to see what I have. I know what I think I have, but what I thought I had, we didn't play well enough, last week. So I got to get him on track and help him to feel a little bit more comfortable. Let's get the ball down the field. So I'm expecting an explosive array of balls that are going to be thrown anywhere, but I'm talking about not even mid-range, like passes that should go 30 or more yards down the field, honestly, because we should be able to do that. Then we're going to pound them and run the football. So I'm looking at West Virginia putting up north of 450 yards of total offense. Yeah,
there you go.
that's what I'm looking at.
Albany.
Now,
you're good.
What say you?
Now,
Does that sound realistic?
I think you can get more. I think you get north of 450. I think you're talking 500 plus. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful here. It's just there's a massive talent gap between these two units, and I think with the way West Virginia played a week ago, they have that bad taste in their mouth. Albany's going to be in their way. This is an opportunity for West Virginia to get that taste out of their mouth, play back, play physical, play hard, play fast, get points on the board early, get your starters some rest before you head into a pivotal game against Pitt next week. That's the key. They don't want this to be a full work day. If you come in, you play efficient football, and you score points, guess what? You're going to have at least a quarter or two to get those guys some more rest. So that's a key part of this entire week, really, this entire game. Last year, Albany's defense, they only gave up 87.7 yards per game on the ground. But like I said, they lost their top 15 players, Gene. This is not 15 guys that they lost total on the defense. They lost their top 15, 1 through 15 players in terms of tackling production. That's a lot of talent to replace, tackles for loss. They were really good in their front seven last year. They had some guys that transferred up to Power 4, now what we call the Power 4, and they lost a lot of talent in that front seven as a whole that made up for a lot of TFLs, a lot of sacks, a lot of other production, and I don't know that they're going to be able to replace it, especially in this game.
And I'll be honest with you, Schuyler, it wouldn't matter if those players were still there. I would still be expecting, in the big scheme of things, I would still be expecting what we're expecting. So it is what it is. I mean, West Virginia has a point. I'm not going to say a point to prove to anybody but themselves that we can play well on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball, no matter who we're in the field with. But we got to get that bitter taste out of our mouth the way we played against Penn State. So that's what it is, honestly. And like you said, Albany just happens to be in the way.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get to our favorite time of the show. It is time for our weekly pick'ems. And Gene, my goodness, my brother, we did not do well. Just like West Virginia's offense last week, we got off to a very slow start. We both went 2-3. We found different ways to get there. But nonetheless, we're tied dead at 2-3 after 1 week of these pick'ems. So we can get a little separation this week, see if we can have somebody on top. Let's start with a little SEC Big Ten action. It's Texas at Michigan, kicking off on Fox at 12 o'clock Eastern time. Texas, no stress at all last week against Colorado State. Michigan, on the other hand, in their first game without Coach Harbaugh, didn't look all that great against Fresno. They won 30-10. They found a way to win, but that's a lot of talent that Michigan is having to replace, not only with the coaching staff, but the players as well. Michigan's going to find their way to be a good football team again this year, but Texas is absolutely loaded. And even with this game being in the big house, I really like the Longhorns to win this game.
So do I. The big house will be the small house this Saturday. So, yes, sir. I'm with you on that. Put Texas in the win column.
Well, if you like defense, this one's typically one that you'll want to watch. It's Iowa State at Iowa, 3:30 on CBS. I've been back and forth on this one. I think we put this one into pick'ems every single year just because it's a fun rivalry, non-conference game that we can talk about. I think Iowa is probably the better team, but I think they have the advantage at quarterback in Rocco Becht, the son of former Mountaineer Anthony Becht. I'm going to side with the Cyclones here in the Big 12 Brethrens. I'm going Iowa State, winning this one by, hold your breath, Gene, 13-10.
Okay.
Barn burner.
Well, I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go with the Hawkeyes.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is going to be good. And I'm not going to give a score. I'm just going to go with the Hawkeyes outright.
All right, so let's go to my backyard here. Tennessee is going to take on NC State, SEC versus ACC, 7:30 on ABC. This one will be played at Bank of America Stadium here in Charlotte. This one's tough. This might be the toughest one on the slate. Usually I have these picks going into it. I still haven't picked this one. I like Tennessee's quarterback a lot. I'm not even trying to pronounce his last name. It's Nico I is what I'm calling him. But NC State kind of in their backyard. I know Tennessee's not that far of a drive either, but NC State has the feeling of a team. If they can get some confidence with a win like this, they could be that team in the ACC that kind of emerges and gets past Clemson, Miami, and Florida State. They could be the team that no one's really talking about in the ACC right now that ends up being a true player come late November. I'm going to go with the Wolfpack here.
That's interesting. I feel you on that. It sounds good. I should. My boy Gibby's down there. I got some ties down there. But I don't know, man. Tennessee. I'm going to go with Tennessee.
You're rocking with the balls. And I had to put this one on here because this is kind of a your guy versus my guy kind of game here. You're a big Deion Sanders fan. I'm a huge Matt Rule guy. I like him a lot. I covered him here in Carolina for a couple of years. He was awesome to me. I know the NFL tenure didn't work out that great, but I respected the heck out of him. Great guy. Colorado at Nebraska, 7:30 on NBC. This one is on NBC. Big time game, old school rivalry. Colorado didn't look great last week, but it was North Dakota State. It's a tough team, a tough FCS team that gives everybody fits. But Nebraska, they've got themselves a quarterback too, a young freshman, Dylan Raiola, and he looks to be legit.
The man.
I'm going to go with the team that I feel like will get more stops in this game. So I'm going to go with the Cornhuskers. Matt Rule, he's a defensive-minded guy. I think he's going to find a way to win in the trenches. And Shedeur Sanders, I love him. Love Travis Hunter. But I don't think they have the physicality in the trenches to hold up in this game. I'm going with Nebraska.
And you know what's funny? I'm checking that as you said it. I'm going with Nebraska as well. I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to tell you why. Exactly what you just said. And here's the other thing, too. The consistency of what happens up front, people don't understand the importance of that. Yeah. I don't think Colorado is there yet.
No.
In the trenches. I just don't. Skill is skill, but I don't think they're there yet in the trenches. In a game like this, you have to be physical when you're playing Nebraska.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're there yet. I'm with you on that.
And the game that everybody in the nation can't wait for this weekend, it is West Virginia and Albany kicking off at 6 o'clock on ESPN+. Tickets are really hard to come by, but that's all right. There's still going to be some room in the stadium for some folks, but you can get some tickets last minute. West Virginia had a heartbreaking loss last week. In some ways, it wasn't a close score, but it was a huge letdown. It was a deflating loss, losing in that fashion to Penn State after all the hype, all the buildup. Now everyone's talking the season's over, but no, it's not. There's a lot of games left to play. This team can still accomplish everything it has in front of them, and Neil Brown said just as much.
It's not going to make or break us. I think I told you all that a week ago. This game wasn't going to make or break us. The frustrating thing is you work to get to a point where you play a game that's on a national stage, and we just didn't produce. And there's no reason being denial about it. It is what it is. It's, and you gotta like our guys watched it today. You gotta learn. You gotta own it. You gotta learn from it. And you gotta grow. And that's kind of where we're at. We got to grow from it. And our season's still in front of us. There's been a lot of good West Virginia teams that got beat by Penn State in its history and bounced back and have had special years. And there's no reason why this team can't do the same. This is the best FCS program we've had come in here since the first game in 2019 when we played James Madison. And so they've got our attention. We're an 0-1 football team till we do something about it. And we've got a great opportunity on Saturday night. Get under the lights. My message to our fans is I wouldn't lose faith on one game. We didn't perform well. Penn State's got a good team, but we'll bounce back and we'll get back on track. And we've got a good football team, and we just got to go out and show it. And so it starts this week with our next opportunity. So I hope fans turn out. It should be a nice night. We're going to get to see the lights for the first time, and so looking forward to that.
West Virginia, folks, it's not going to be a sweat this week. Mountaineers will win this game. I don't even know that the spread is even out yet at the time of this recording, but whatever it is, go ahead and lay the freaking points. The Mountaineers are going to put up a big, big number this weekend. They're going to get that first one of the season, get their confidence going into the backyard brawl, healthy and ready to take on Pitt. I'm going West Virginia.
It is obvious who I'm going with.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you're wearing. I know that you are wearing blue. I'm a little colorblind. I thought that was purple for a second, but
it is obvious who I'm going with. Of course, the Mountaineers will get back on track. Of course, we will beat Albany. Of course, we will do everything that we should have done against Penn State. That being said, I'm not going to give a score because last week I gave a score. Yeah, I'm not going to give a score. I'll just say this: West Virginia will win big. How about that?
Yeah, I think everyone would love to see that happen. There's no reason for this one to be entertaining at all at any point. If so, then, Gene, we're going to have an interesting Saturday night conversation on the postgame show. But speaking of which, make sure you tune in, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page here at West Virginia on SI to get that notification when the postgame show drops on Saturday night. We'll recap West Virginia and Albany. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode here of the Walkthrough Game Day Show. Drop in the comment section of this particular show your 5 picks for our pick'ems. If you get all 5 right, you get that man's autograph picture, and we'll get that out to you ASAP. Follow us on X at SI_WVU. For Eugene Napoleon, I'm Callihan. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on Saturday for the postgame show.